It's okay to feel. As long as you allow yourself to feel, you are in a state of power. You are in a state of not control, but a flow, of allowing things to come and go with your hands wide open. When I was experiencing that numbness, my hands were so closed. Do you know that when your hands are closed, you can't accept no blessings either? So as much as I'm not accepting the sadness, I'm also not accepting the joy and the blessings that are coming my way. We're not doing that. Hey, it's your girl EK, and welcome to my show, Two Things Can Be True, here on Women of Tomorrow. Y'all, I am so excited to dive deep into the beautiful complexities of this thing called life, okay? We're going to explore all of the truths that coexist, the good ones, the bad ones, the indifferent, everything in between, okay? Because if I'm going to live this life, I want to live it fully. So welcome to Two Things Can Be True. And we're talking about the two G's, okay? Grief and growth. These two things have been such a monumental part of my journey. I pay homage to these two parts of my journey through every episode of my life, every chapter, every page. And so I want to welcome you to dive a little deeper to these two concepts that we all experience in some way. So come along with me. Let's talk. A couple of years ago, 5 years to be exact, I lost my mom. Now, I know you're thinking, I haven't lost my mom, so how can I relate? But when I think about grief, I think about the fact that grieving is not just losing someone in the physical form. Grief is also losing yourself. It's losing a place. It's moving on from something. It shows up in so many ways that we often don't even imagine. And so it kind of suffocates us because we don't know that it exists, right? So when I think about this quote that came up to me recently, that grief is love made homeless. Imagine that you have placed your love into something. You've placed your love into a journey. You've placed your love into the former version of you. And when I say love, you have invested in that version of you. You've either invested in that person, you've invested in that place, whether it's a business. But when I think about grief, I have to acknowledge that I loved that thing. I had so much love for it, so much care, so much thoughtfulness toward it. And when it's snatched away from you or when you depart from it, honestly, it just kind of leaves you a little bit empty. You have to figure out, where do I put this love now? And sometimes, like buying a new apartment, you walk into the new apartment and nothing is there, but yet the feeling that you had from the old apartment still lingers. And so when I think about, grief is love made homeless, and losing my mom, I had to journey and choose actively to feel my feelings. But let me tell you the truth, right? I didn't. I did not. So when we started off this journey of grief, whether you're parting from something, the old you, that moment for me was parting from everything. It was parting from the old version of me that was timid. It was parting from my mom in physical form. It was parting from the friends that I had. And my first resort was numbness, just numb, just not feeling anything, because the thought of even imagining what the feelings could be like, I was like, we're not even finna go there. We're not going there. I'm not even about to dibble and dabble in that. I'm going to stick exactly where I am, which is safe, which is comfortable, which feels like I have some type of control, because clearly I don't have control of this thing. Now, let me talk to y'all about how I chose to actually embrace it and embrace the journey. Grief can be very heart-wrenching, but grief can also be very uplifting. It can be very heartwarming. It can be very heart-empowering. I truly believe that at the moment, I was faced with two things: grief being a reality check, and then growth being a faith check. When I think about trauma, right? Because that's what this is. Everything that happens in our life that we experience as we journey is something called trauma. Learned it in psychology freshman year before I changed my major 3 times. Okay. And I realized that you have the fight, you have the flight, you have the freeze, you have the fawn. And they always tell you about these things. They tell you about how, if you're flighting, that means you're trying to get away from the situation and you're trying to just flee away from it. If you're talking about fleeing, similar to that is that you kind of just don't want to face it. You're ready to just run from it. When we talk about freeze, it's like, I don't even know what's happening. I have no sense of control. I'm just going to disassociate. And when we talk about fawn, that's a whole nother category. But can I offer you what really kept me through all of those transitions? It was faith. I feel like grief was a reality check. It was like, girl, you are not happy with your life right now. You are not happy with the circumstance that just happened, but you haven't been happy. But the growth in me allowed me to have a faith check. It was like, hey, yes, this is what your circumstance looks like right now. Yes, this is what's happening around you. Yes, this is how you feel or lack thereof. But you have an opportunity to choose something new right now. You have an opportunity to explore a new part of you. You can either step up to the plate and swim or shrink. And I actively chose to swim. And I just wanted to bring this to your awareness, because it's possible. As much as grief can be debilitating, it can also be your determining factor to really grow and to really just thrive in a way that you never thought you could thrive. In the moment, I think I was reflecting on what was happening in this instance as I was preparing for this. I was reflecting. And I was like, I, at that moment, had never reflected on my circumstances like that. When that moment happened, the transition of not only losing my mom, but also realizing that I had lost a part of myself along the way. I had lost friends along the way, family along the way. I was like, dang, I haven't really ever sat down to say hey, do I like my life? Do I like the way that I show up? Am I pleased with the way that I communicate with people? Am I pleased with the friends that I have around me? Do I need to raise my standard? So in the same breath of I had never kind of assessed those situations and circumstances, I had never assessed my life in all of the circumstances of how I was showing up. It was the perfect, sobering, yet empowering moment for me to be able to say, girl, we could turn this up a notch. You know that, right? We could choose to feel feelings that we haven't felt before. You know that, right? We could choose to no longer live a life of numbness, but more of a life of fullness. So I had this revelation and I was like, yo, if I have not felt the immense sadness or discomfort because of my numbness all of this time, have I ever truly felt the fullness of joy that is available to me on this earth? That, to me, mind-blowing. I was like, no, you're inhibiting yourself from actually experiencing the love that people have for you, the happiness that you feel when you celebrate something, the joy that you feel when you see your sister accomplish something, because you're too afraid to go to the other spectrum of emotion, which is not so pretty all the time, but it's worth it. In that moment, I chose to give myself permission to feel the full spectrum of emotions because I wanted to live my life fully. When we talk about growth, you cannot have growth without reality, but you also cannot have growth without imagination. That what's to come could be greater than what is happening right here. And I chose to lean all the way into that. I chose to lean all the way into the possibility that I could heal, that I could no longer have depression, that I won't be bound by the sadness and the depression that came with grief, but that I would lean into the opportunity of renewal, of something that I was like, that is totally out of reach. There's no way. Don't get me wrong. When I say two things can be true, it does not invalidate either side. I acknowledge that the grief was entirely difficult. The grief hurt like hell. But the grief also showed me the depth of myself that I would have never, ever, ever, ever been able to see. I was able to put a mirror up to myself and say, hey, girl, I see you. I see you when you're nervous. I see you when you're excited. I see you when you're trying the new thing, when you're speaking up for yourself, when you're advocating for yourself. I see you in all of who you are. And instead of trying to dissect you and judge you, I'm just going to accept what you have. I'm just going to accept what you present. When you see yourself in that way, there's so much freedom in giving yourself the space to feel. It's okay to feel. As long as you allow yourself to feel, you are in a state of power. You are in a state of not control, but a flow, of allowing things to come and go with your hands wide open. When I was experiencing that numbness, my hands were so closed. Do you know that when your hands are closed, you can't accept no blessings either? So as much as I'm not accepting the sadness, I'm also not accepting the joy and the blessings that are coming my way. We not doing that. I want it all. I want it all. And so I had to really boldly, courageously, crazily ask God to help me to feel the things that I had just buried for so long. Growing up, I think we're often told you talk too much or you cry too much. And I held that. Whatever person that said that to me in that moment, I held the fact that vulnerability was weakness, when in reality, it is power. Being able to walk through the nuance of your emotions and show up as the person that you need for yourself in those moments is power. Being able to show up for yourself at every stage in the game is power. Don't ever get it twisted. That is power. But not everybody gets an opportunity to feel that power because they don't allow the emotion to come in. Everybody wants to grow, but nobody wants to change. We often can't control how the change comes about, whether you have to move into a new apartment or you lose a family member or you're graduating into a new school or you have to get a new job, you move from state to state. You cannot often control the reason and how change comes, but you can control how you face it, embrace it, and milk it. And so when I let those emotions in, I was in a state of power. What used to control me could no longer control me because I could look face to face to the thing that came about and I decided, what did I want to do with it? What did I want to do with this sadness? What did I want to do with this despair? What did I want to do with the joy that was coming, the beautiful memories of the past? I chose to feel it and embrace it. I didn't want to suffocate myself anymore, and I hope you don't either. Feeling is a state of power, and it's time for you to take a hold of it. Trust me. There are so many people out there you'd be surprised that are facing the same thing as you as we grieve the past versions of ourselves, the people that we've lost, the places that we wish we could be at. But it's on you to decide how active and how engaged you're going to be in that process so that you can truly grow from it. Things don't happen to you. They're happening for you, I promise. And I'm sitting here telling you that as I had faced the despair of losing my own mother. But I know that if she was here, she would let me know that everything is working for your good. Everything works for your good. It builds character. It builds a new space of love in your heart. You're able to have more empathy, more trust, more love, more light flowing throughout you. When you choose to feel, you welcome all of the beauty of the world as well. So if there's anything that I can leave with you today on the first episode of Two Things Can Be True, it's that you can feel and also be in power. Grief, yes, is a loss of something, someone, or a place, but it also allows you to gain closeness to that person, that place, or that thing. And so I want you to lean into the closeness, lean into the imagination of what's to come, lean into the faith, lean into all of the things that you may not see, but you're hoping for because they're on their way to you the second that you decide. Two things can be true. Grief is a reality check, but growth is a faith check. And I'm with that.